All right, with the recording started, it is 10 a.m. and I want to welcome everybody to Making Waves, new updates for waterfront listings and searches. We do these types of webinars monthly here at Northstar MLS. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome. And do keep an eye out to see what's going to be coming up next month and beyond. If you are returning, welcome back. Very glad to have you. David, if you want to advance the next slide. We'll be talking about Waterfront, obviously. And with me, I am Mandy Bolt, Director of Engagement here at Northstar MLS. And joining me is Hannah Zimprick, who is our Vendor and Customer Engagement Manager. She and I have been partners in crime. She doing more of the technical work, the heavy lifting, so to speak, than me. But this has been an interesting project with a lot of different facets that we'll be walking through with you today to give you some idea of just what's up with Waterfront when it comes to listings in Northstar MLS and how do we tackle this when it comes to dealing with listing field names, search field updates, because we're making those. They're in progress in Matrix and FlexMLS. And we'll also be rolling out some CE class and other communications that we'll talk about. We also will be going through a demo. Hannah will take you through this that will show you just where Waterfront is being tweaked in our add edit fields. We've made some changes that reorder, nothing major, but just some things we think will streamline and make the process of creating your Waterfront listings easier, as well as search in Matrix and MLS. We'll also be talking about some tips for maximizing your listing in search, and then we will take questions at the end. So David Zimmerman, our customer success manager, is kind of running the controls here and will guide us through that process. But there will be a couple of polls, and one of them we'd like to bring up now. If you want to put that up, David, it's the second on the list, but that will be our first poll. And the question we want to know is just what Northstar MLS search platform do you use, Matrix or Flex MLS? We will be talking about both of these today, but just want to get a sense of who's with us. And welcome for both of you, whether you're a Matrix user or a Flex MLS user, both will be showing and demoing both of those today. So
And just a reminder, will be recorded, and you will be getting an email at the conclusion of the webinar today with the recording. And again, please use the Q&A box that you'll see there to submit any questions you may have, and we'll review those towards the end of the webinar today.
all right. So it looks like, yeah, 83 and 17%. So a good number of Flex users with us today. So welcome to everybody, both Flex and MLS. And like I said, we'll be walking through both of those solutions when it comes to this. All right. I think I can share results too. So that'll show you what this looks like there. All right. Thanks for
Perfect. Yeah.
participating.
It looks like you got it ended there. I just wanted to make sure. So, all
Perfect.
right.
Perfect. If you want to go to the next slide, David. And I'm getting a weird picture in picture where I see, yeah. There we go. All right. So talking about waterfront, and we kind of put what's up with waterfront. This is a topic both Hannah and I are relatively new to our roles. We've both been here for about a year. And if you want to know one thing that everybody talked to us about, whether it was a topic with our agent advisory committee, it was waterfront. And we know, especially for those of you that are in greater Minnesota, North Dakota, Western Wisconsin, waterfront topics are very important. It's a big component to many of your businesses. And there was a lot of frustration about listings not being included or not including waterfront information. And that's something where we found, that's kind of a human error. We can make all the listing capabilities, available to you in the forms, but we can't necessarily make you fill them out the way people want them to. We also found listings that had incorrect waterfront information where when you really looked at it, maybe it was the wrong, lake that had been selected, or it wasn't really a lakefront or waterfront property. We had issues with searches not including waterfront properties, and some of it was we realized some of our search capabilities in both Flex and ML or Flex and Matrix rather were not working the way we had thought that they were, and that was something people pointed out, and we were able to start getting resolution in place for that. There's also varying assumptions about how what waterfront yes, no, or waterfront present those options for search worked, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later as well. Um, and then we had kind of an interesting, kind of hodgepodge order to our waterfront types, and we'll go through that as well and show you, what we're able to do to sort of streamline that and hopefully make it more logical. And then there's things that are just, beyond our control. We're not in charge of lakefront data or lake data rather. So if you go out to the DNR, websites for Wisconsin, Minnesota, or North Dakota, you'd find that there was some confusing duplicative things in there. And we can put requests in, but we're not necessarily in charge of getting them to do things that make it easier on our side. So a little bit of, of all of this stuff where there's some things that were within our control, some that wasn't in our control. It varied between search, it varied between the listing input, and just, generally too what your clients were looking for. So also to give it some scope, Hannah and I were talking one day, and if you want to go to the next slide, David, two is just to say what's up, with waterfront, how much waterfront listings are there in the MLS? Thank you. And when one random day earlier this month, we found that we had single family active listings, we had about 18,486 of those. And of those, all of those that were all waterfront that had an or option, so lakefront, riverfront, creek or stream, there were 3,368. So about 18% included any one of those components. And about just under 2,000 or 10% were strictly lakefront. So this is one of these things too where it's not, it's not the majority of our listings by any stretch, but it is a significant amount and we know it's important. But for those of you who are saying making waterfront, it must be a mandatory, listing or a mandatory requirement for when you create a listing, that's not something that we're able to actually, do just given the fact that it's only a component of our listings. But this kind of helps understand the scope. And that we had people too, for all of those that were gung-ho about, hey, waterfront is important, it's core to our business. We also had people say, we spend all of our time trying to take the waterfront options out of the listings that we're searching for. Maybe it's, Minneapolis areas near the Minneapolis lakes that don't want those more high buck, properties in the, listing pool that they're trying to create. So just when we thought everybody wants this, we'd find somebody who didn't. And like I said, it was all over the place rather, in terms of where, people wanted it to be. So just to give you a scope of the issue that we're dealing with, that does that. If you want to go to the next slide, David. Some of the issues that we found with the search not, showing lake homes. Not all of it. We did have some technical issues that Hannah's going to talk more about how we're getting those resolved. But we also found that there was, some of it was a little bit of user error too, in that maybe that listing agent didn't enter the property as waterfront. And I know those of you who are really frustrated about that, when you see that, it's a waterfront property and you have clients looking for that, and for whatever reason that agent didn't put the property, list that property as waterfront. This is something that will remind you is that you can hit the report button, and we want you to hit the report button when you see, waterfront property that's, not including that waterfront information. While it's not, a required field, you are obligated, as showing these properties, as accurately as possible. You are, responsible to make sure that that information is included in your listing. And so if you see listings that should have it and don't, hit that report button. There's also people who they're like, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. You're not getting anybody in trouble by doing that. What you're doing is help make the data what it should be, that everybody looks for in the MLS. We reach out to them. We say, hey, we see this. Can you fix it? They fix it. It's very rare that there's ever any fines associated, with that being flagged as a report. So get comfortable doing that if you're seeing things that are not right. We that's part of how we keep things up to date. The property access, the other issue we found too is that properties had shared access instead of shoreline too. So there would be other components where, if it's shared access or it doesn't have that waterfront, element to it, that doesn't show up in those searches. And Hannah's going to go into the details of that a little bit later as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the other component too was that as we dug into the DNR data, there's a lot of confusion around lake names that they're either, different or incorrect. And that becomes an issue as well. And we'll talk about some of those a little bit later as well. So going to the next slide, David, and pardon the pun, but we wanted to go about how do we tackle this? In that we didn't want to remove any search capabilities because we know if we completely get rid of waterfront yes no or waterfront present, those of you who live by that would be upset. And we'll talk about, like I said, what we're doing to give you other options as well that might be help you be more strategic and streamlined in your approach to your search. So Hannah will go through that. So we're not taking away any search capabilities. But one of the big things that we found that we thought was confusing too is we've reordered those waterfront options in Add Edit as well as Matrix and Flex MLS. So you'll see that happening. The waterfront, yes, no, like I said just before, we're not hiding anything in Matrix. We're not getting rid of anything in Matrix, but we are going to hide that so that if you do want that element back because you like it, Hannah's going to show you where that is and how to find it. And we'll be talking about some better search strategies that we actually think are a little bit better than just checking the waterfront yes, no. Again, encouraging those reporting of listings where you have missing issues. And then lastly, this session is kind of the first of a campaign to roll out to start talking about waterfront. We are going to have components of what you hear today be part of an education campaign that you'll see as a CE class. We'll be partnering with your local associations we don't provide CE ourselves, but we do offer CE classes that in partnership with your associations you can do. So keep that in mind and look for more information on the class where we're going to go into way more detail than we are right now. David, if you want to go to the next slide. We talked about switching up the order of waterfront types across all of our platforms. So again, you're going to see this in Add Edit as well as FlexMLS and Matrix. And one of the things that we did is we reordered it so that we have lakefront, riverfront, and creek and stream. So these are all of your waterfront present categories. If you would check this, if you check those are what get you that waterfront, yes or waterfront present view. Then the next kind of grouping we have is association access, deeded access, and shared. And then following that is pond, which may or may not be a lake. And again, we don't define, and each state defines what a lake is versus a pond. Some have very specific definitions. Others, like Minnesota, Wisconsin, and North Dakota, don't. And again, that's not something that's in our purview to be able to make those descriptions, really finite. But there are out there, and you can check with your state's requirements to see how those are defined. And then that we had categories like Lakeview and Riverview too, where again, it's not necessarily waterfront, but you have those views or you have those access. And then dock and channel shore are other categories too, where again, they're not going to trigger front this as a waterfront listing, but they are ones because you can check more than one category when it comes to, putting your listing together or doing your search, where you can use those. We also had other and Lake Superior in our categories. And other was one where we're like, do we keep this or do we get rid of this? And when we looked at how you were using other, some of you might have kind of reiterated or duplicated what were other, waterfront terms that were available to you, but others of you used it for things that we thought were valuable. So we are leaving that there for your use, and you can fill in the blank as to what that is. Lastly, we had Lake Superior, and this is one where we weren't, we had it, we looked at it. There were people who were using it, but it was small, and a lot of it was duplicate to Lakefront or Lakeview, depending on what that option was. But we felt that that was kind of too specific, and are in the process of removing that from one of our waterfront categories, so you won't be seeing that anymore. But again, you can select whether it's lakefront or lake view to be able to use that similar category. And then when that happens, you're prompted to name the lake. So we think we have that covered without having to put it here. David, the that pop-up, okay, there we go. So those are just kind of all of the categories to be thinking about. And the other thing with these too is we try to follow RESO standards, which is sort of the MLS guidebook for all MLSs in terms of what we call these. Right now, they are actually looking at their waterfront categories as well and may have some updates. In looking at it, we really felt that those were their categories were very focused on like coastal type terms, and so some of our categories here fit RESO standards, others don't. And like I said, I see this as something too where we hope to have influence and give them some feedback as to what our needs are for being lake and river and stream focused. Versus we obviously don't have any ocean front in Minnesota, Wisconsin, or North Dakota. So more to come on that. And but this is how we have it, and we will actively make sure that this list best meets your needs going forward. And we're hoping that this reordering helps a bit. So next slide. Excuse me. And the other issue becomes too is with all of this, again, we talked about the Lake Finder options. These are available on NorthstarMLS dashboard, so you can see these as your resources as you scroll down. This will help you find that information. Excuse me, I have to take a sip of water. And and if you're not sure if it's the right long lake, this is a great resource for you to try to figure out what, if you're in the right place or not. So being able to kind of keep that in front of you is very important. And going back to that question, how many long lakes are there? When we went through the Minnesota DNR Lake Finder, the Wisconsin DNR Lake Finder, and the North Dakota Game and Fish, we found that there are 93 just straight up long lakes in Minnesota. So we're not including the little longs or the long longs or the longs that are broken into two, but in Minnesota, 93 different lakes. In Wisconsin, a little bit less. There were 65, and in North Dakota, where there aren't as many lakes, they still had three. And so, again, making sure that you have the right long lake, or if you go to the next slide, David, do you have the right Lake Leda? And this example here, this is a lake near Pelican Rapids or in Pelican Rapids in Otter Tail County, Minnesota. And this was an interesting one we looked at because, as you can see on the right side there, North Leda is a rather large lake. South Leda, there's like a highway that runs through it. And South Leda is much smaller to go there. But if you go out to the DNR results for Minnesota, you'll find that they have Leda named with an ID. They don't have the town or other information available with it, but North Leda and South Leda are both broken out there. When we looked at our listings that had this in play, we did find that there were some that probably should have been South Leda that were North Leda, or North Leda that should have been South Leda. So again, really making sure and verifying that you have the right lake data when you put your listings together, very important there. So something else to think about, and another finding that we had. All right, so just before we switch over to demo, we have our second poll, and the question here is, which of the waterfront types, are you expecting to show up in your waterfront yes search results? So if you check, waterfront yes, what are you hoping to see? Exclusively lakefront, or are you expecting to see lakefront or riverfront or creek or stream? And we'll let this come in, and then I'm going to switch over and let Hannah take over, and she'll talk to you about what the result should be.
We have about 67% participating, so
I'm
we'll
going to
just give it a
say,
few more moments here.
sure. I'd say that's good, David.
Yeah, we're almost at 75%.
Yep, perfect. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so 71% have it as lakefront or riverfront or creek stream, and 29% have it exclusively lakefront. And so, Hannah, I'm going to toss it over to you to kind of talk about what the
Yeah.
actual result is.
So, before oh, I need to share this screen. So before I get into can you guys see Add Edit here?
Yep, it just
Yep,
showed up.
we can see it. If you are not seeing it, make sure that you navigate over to where it says Hannah Zimperk's screen at that tab at the top of your Zoom webinar. So if it didn't come up by default, there might be a little tab at the top where Hannah's sharing her screen.
I'll give everyone a moment to move over.
It may have just been me because I was presenting
Okay.
before you, but I just want to make sure that everybody can definitely see your screen.
So we'll get back to the poll in just a second here, but I wanted to just kind of talk about some of the changes that we made here in Add Edit. And so these are the waterfront fields that we currently have. We made a few changes to some of the names. So if you haven't noticed, this used to be called Lake/Waterfront, and then this field was Lake/Waterfront name. And we just made a few adjustments. This is more RESO compliant, but also I think it gives a little more clarification that not everything's a lake in our waterfront fields here, although that is obviously a bigger percentage. And we did do a little bit of reordering of our lookups here. So we've got lakefront, riverfront, creek, stream at the top here. As you can see, the waterfront yes, no field that you search by in Matrix or in Flex
Hey,
does
Hannah.
not,
Sorry,
yes,
could you just zoom in a little bit further?
yes,
Could you just like increase your yeah, there we go.
a
Just so
little
that
better.
people can see it a little bit easier. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The waterfront yes, no field does not display in our ad edit. It is a field that is in the database, and it populates based on what you choose in the waterfront type field here. And that's what we send then downstream to Matrix and Flex, and that's how you can do your searches on the waterfront yes. What we found is that and as you can see in the poll, we have differences of what that waterfront yes populates as. In Ad Edit, if you had selected a lakefront here, this would then populate your waterfront yes, no field to yes. Also, if you select riverfront or if you select creek and stream. So any one of these could be selected and your waterfront yes, no field would be populated as yes. And so what we want to make clear is what that waterfront yes, no field does, and also a kind of give an option of how to do a better search for the people that have different ways of searching. Some people are looking for all three, and some people are looking just for lakefront um, and don't want the creek, stream, riverfront options. So I am going to switch over here to Matrix. Can you see Matrix now? I want to make sure that
Yeah, we can. If you could zoom in on this one too a little
yep,
bit, that'd be great. I know it's kind of funky with that white space. So
yep.
perfect.
So I wanted to show you kind of here in Matrix, and we do have one more change that we're going to be making, but I'll show you that in a little bit. But we again updated the name here to match what's in Add Edit and reordered the lookup so that they're matching what we have um, in our Add Edit. Um, so when you're doing a search in Matrix, and let's say, a lot of people are using this waterfront yes, no field. We did hide it from here because of um, the changes that we were making and trying to show you how to use this waterfront type field, and I'll show you in a little bit. But if you don't see the waterfront yes, no on yours, you can go here and add it. Just type in waterfront yes, no and add. Um, that's how I put it here. And I just want to show you kind of what you were doing before. If you did a waterfront yes, no search here, and I'll just do active waterfront yes. You can see I have 2,402 matches. What that would be equivalent to if I was going to use the waterfront type search instead, I'll remove that. Basically, all you're going to do is do lakefront, riverfront, creek, stream, and you're going to want to make sure that you have or selected. Um, and you can see that it's giving back the same exact matches, 2,402 matches here. What we're trying to do here is this waterfront type field gives very specific details of what kind of waterfront, lakefront, riverfront, shared, association access. And so based on whatever kind of searches that you're trying to do, you can get a little more detailed on exactly what you're looking for. Um, if you are only looking for lakefront, using the waterfront yes, no is not gonna, it's gonna give you extra results than maybe you are anticipating. And so that's why we are suggesting to use this waterfront type field. If you're just looking for lakefront, all you have to do is select lakefront here. Um, you do not need this field to search for lakefront. And then I kind of wanted to show too how we can do I know we did talk to some people that are actually looking for the opposite. They don't want to have waterfront properties in their results. And so if you were using waterfront, yes, no, no, you can see here. I'll put in a county here just to get some results. We have 166 matches. How to do this with the waterfront type field. Basically, you would do select lakefront, riverfront, creek, stream, and I'm going to deselect them like this. And now I get the same exact results that I would have found if I had done waterfront no. I wanted to show this as well in Flex.
And again, going back to that before you go to Flex
Yeah.
too, I mean, for people who just want to, want to search for lakes, that waterfront type field gives you that lakefront option far better than the waterfront yes, yes or present did before, correct?
Yes, because this is going to give you all three of these properties.
Yeah,
Whereas if you're just looking for lakefront, which we saw in the poll, a lot of people, I
right.
mean, most of you were looking for lakefront, riverfront, creek, stream, but we still had a high percentage of people that were they're just looking for lakefront. And so this is kind of the best way to do that. I mean, you can do this, yes, but you're going to have to weed through some of those listings that don't have lakefront. So
Yeah, so for those of you that just want lakefront searches, you do have that ability, to do that with just lakefront, and then you'll show them how to do it in Flex next as well. Sorry to
yes.
interrupt. Yep.
And unfortunately, I am working literally this morning with Flex to get this fixed. The waterfront type field is giving some results, but it's not giving all the results. So I'm working on that technical issue. But it's going to be working the same very soon here. Where, if you did your waterfront yes and you get your results, it's going to be the same thing like I showed in Matrix, where is if you're using the waterfront type and you can just select lakefront, riverfront, creek and stream, should be giving the same results. We're working on the technical difficulty there, but this is kind of what the changes that we're trying to push is use this waterfront type field. It's going to give you a little more um, ways to either broaden your search or narrow your search depending on what kind of search you're doing. Mandy, anything else that I missed here?
No, I think that's, the part that was sort of the aha to us is that we have this ability. You have this ability to, specifically focus in on lakefront, and that, this field will probably do it the very best. Because before, and we'll get into more, the use of and or not as well, and what you could wind up with after your demo too. So there's a teaser for
Yeah,
that.
I could
Yeah.
actually show that too. So
Yeah.
in using, I mean, this relates to any field where you have multiple selections, and you can see you can choose and or. It's just very important to make sure you know the difference between and or. So if I'm doing lakefront, riverfront, creek, and stream, and I have this selected as and, I'm getting zero results. Because what this is doing is you're looking for a property that has both, or has a lakefront, a riverfront, and a creek and stream, all three. Whereas clicking the or is going to give you listings that have a lakefront and all the listings that have a riverfront and all the listings that have creek and stream. And it's I guess I should say or, but you're getting the combination of all of those listings. All right. And then, yeah, anything else?
There are a couple kind of pertinent questions. Peter wanted to know the road between waterfront and home currently, yes, no. What about a search for both? Um,
Road between,
so I think if I understand what he's asking about too is with waterfront, yes, properties that does include, the definition does include those that have a road in front of it, between it the property and the lakefront. And so we have those definitions. We weren't going to go through them in here, but that is something that can be included. And we're going to point you to the resources that go through those definitions here at the end. And then Debbie was saying maybe you'll get to this, but where fields just change so that existing MLS searches are still valid, or are they deselected and new fields created? Do we need to go in and create new searches? So I know you can speak to this, Hannah.
yeah, so in regards to Matrix, the fields were just renamed. And so you don't have to do anything in your searches. They basically just replaced it's the same field, just a different name. Um, what we are suggesting though is because of this waterfront yes no, um, what we'd like you to do is if you have a search right now that's set up with yes no, switch it to using the waterfront type field. So we didn't make any changes to your searches, so they're set up the same as they were. But if you want to go in and switch it from using this waterfront yes no field to using this waterfront type field, then in future, if this ever if we do decide to shut this one down, then you're just using the waterfront type field. In regards to Flex, I think the same thing. I believe they were supposed to be just changing the name. There again, there's some mapping issue with it right now, and so if you're using a search like today, I would probably just use this waterfront yes no. This waterfront type field is not working correctly, but once it is working correctly, it's going to be working as you won't have to make any changes to your search at that point. It is just a renaming of the field. I hope that answered the question.
I think so. If not, chime in there again. Let's see here. Yeah. All right. We've got a couple more, but we're gonna get those more at the end and keep going. Are you done with your demo, or do you have more to show?
Yep, I'm good to go.
Do you want to touch on the and or the not component too as
Oh,
well?
sure.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you in part because it is not in the production site yet. It's in the staging site. Um, but I can show you what it's going to look like. So they are going to be moving the default for, so again, back to the and or. Right now it's currently defaulting to and, but we're going to switch it to default to or. And in doing so, it is changing the field type slightly. It's the same field, but what it's going to do is it's going to look more like this. So instead of having a little scroll bar, it's going to have everything laid out like this. And instead of selecting and then deselecting, you're going to have this little knot here. So if you're going to do lakefront, riverfront, creek and stream, and then you can do not, and that's how you would search for um, no waterfront. Again,
And some of the things that Hannah's been has been dealing with in working with our vendors on this too is we had this reordered and then we asked for the knot and then they brought it back back to the old order but with the knot. So like I said, we're being diligent and working with this, but that's why you're seeing that we didn't undo the
yeah,
order. Yeah, we
this
had
the order will be the same as it
yeah.
was in production. So, um, yeah, we were hoping that this would all be, ready for today's webinar, but it is the way it is, and um, but we will be getting that out shortly to production.
Literally, she's working on it real time, folks.
Yes.
So this is happening live. Okay, David, if you want to put the presentation back up.
Are you seeing what you should be seeing?
No, if you want to do it the
One moment.
slideshow view. Yeah.
Is it giving you the wrong view? Is
There we
that right
go. That's
now?
it. That's it. Okay.
Okay,
And if you want to
cool.
advance the slide.
Yep, we'll go ahead and go next here.
And so some of what with this and or and not factor, so checking waterfront, yes, with the and where you get lakefront, riverfront, and creek and stream. It's like, does such a property exist? If you would be looking for all of those, this is what AI tells you it would look like. So this is not an actual listing, but again, so thinking about how you're doing your searches, the terms that you're employing in terms of the and or not in waterfront types can help you get a big search or a little search, and if you or results. And if you want to go to the next slide, Hannah's touched on this a little bit too, but again, just a reminder, and this is not just for waterfront types, but all of the categories that you see this in Ad Edit, Matrix and Flex MLS. So keeping that in mind. But again, and that's going to narrow and focus to, if you want lakefront and riverfront, you're going to get the categories if you use and that only have those two components in it. If you do lakefront or, or waterfront, or I'm sorry, lakefront or riverfront, you're going to get all the ones that are lake, all the ones that are river, or if you choose not, again, it's that narrowing. It's going to exclude those specific categories that you do or don't want. So again, with that waterfront type, we're thinking this will give you more versatility to help you, if you want just exclusively lakefront, you can go ahead and select all the other ones and choose not, and get that lakefront that you're looking for. You can go to the next slide. So coming down the pike, and like I said, you sort of got a taste of it today, but we will have a CE class coming out. So again, look for that. We will have more of the updates that you're literally seeing transpiring today as Hannah takes a break to come host this class with me. But we'll have those in play, soon enough, and we'll be keeping people up to date as we make those updates. So keep that up. But this is kind of what we'd be doing with that class. So a chance to get some CE as well. If there's anything you say, hey, you really should, be addressing this in the class, put it in the Q&A, let us know. We'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well. And then David, if you want to go to the next slide. We also have new resources that we've updated, and we're going to today, when we send the recording out of this presentation, we'll include these along with it. But we have a or an updated rules and regs document on our website that has waterfront types. And so that will go through, what does lakefront, what does, riverfront, what are those definitions, as we understand them today, and how should they be applied and what do they work with. So there's details on that. Trisha Henshin, who is our rules and regs administrator and guru, put together a blog that went out last month, just talking about, again, why accurate data matters, and she'll help you kind of cover, how do you verify, if the property qualifies as waterfront, so there's, tips that you can go to kind of look through that. Are you using the right, Minnesota DNR or Wisconsin or North Dakota Lake Finder resources to do that? So she'll talk about that in that blog. So take a look at that. And then another component that, again, this applies, broadly to other things too, but map pins. And so when you're putting your listing together, making sure you have the map pin, near the right lake, actually reflecting where the property is. Because we know a lot of you are drawing, are kind of creating, maps of where your search is. And if that pin, isn't in that, it's not pulling up, even though it's on that lake people are looking for. So David goes into great detail, and he's also talked a lot about map pins in other situations. And so you'll have a chance, to see that as well, but a good resource, in addition. And with that, questions.